Hey everybody, you got Derek here to do a little introduction to our sidebar. So, an entire section, about 30 minutes of which it hit the cutting room floor when we were doing our edit of the last episode discussing Judgment at Nuremberg, mostly because we didn't think that you, as the listener, wanted an episode that was going to last about 2 hours. So we have picked up that cut part off the cutting room floor and turned it into a sidebar. Today we are giving to you a conversation amongst all three of us, mostly led by Mike, which was presented as a what would happen after a Nuremberg-trial-esque situation and how to effectively denazify / bring a country back to democratic values. In some ways, it sort of became a Geoff and Mike's checklist to get America back on the right track. Either way, it's a very interesting conversation. And honestly, we very much would ask that if you have any comments or suggestions or, questions about what we discussed, please reach out to us, because this is certainly an issue that at least two of us, if not all three of us, are very interested in having a conversation about. So enjoy a segment from the last episode, and we'll be back next week where we will be discussing Daredevil Season 2. And to be clear, this is the Daredevil Netflix series that came out in March 2016, not the more recent 2025 Daredevil Born Again version. So the one from the Season 2 of the 2016 version, based on the Marvel Comics character, where Derek once again gets to jump back into Marvel and not at all get confused. So if you haven't watched Daredevil Season 2, we highly recommend you do that before we put out next week's episode. And of course, in the meantime, please enjoy the conversation that was cut from the Judgment at Nuremberg episode.
So for this week, I had the task of brainstorming some ideas on how, assuming we get to this point, how do you reform a regime and bring the country back to democratic norms? I think we all view the Nuremberg trials as a great success, and I think that would be a great first step if we put people on trial for actual war crimes, and maybe a failing of some of the more recent administrations is a failure to do that.
Yeah, Ford set a bad precedent back in the 70s.
Ford, also Obama.
That's true.
At the very least, I do wish people had been prosecuted under Obama for torture, because I think that would have set a really hard precedent that we do not torture as a country. But, difficult to do. Where do you start with these things? I think the place, if I were in charge, I would choose to start would be some democratic reforms, including removing the filibuster, in part because that makes some of the other reforms much easier, but also it seems like a thing that's going to happen inevitably anyway. And we sort of have a rump Congress right now, a Congress that will not do anything to oppose the president. If it were easier for the Senate to act, I think they would be more incentivized to pass laws and maybe be a little more adversarial with the executive branch, which I think is something we should want in the future, just to have some tension between the branches of government. I don't know if you guys want to jump in at all. Getting rid of the filibuster would drop us down from the 60 vote threshold to just bare majority. I think that would make things more likely to pass, including what would probably be a significant reform, and that is making Washington, D.C. and possibly Puerto Rico states.
Sure.
There's a number of hurdles you could jump over there, but also I think that one thing that would, and I should have done the math before this, but one thing that would make a future Trump less likely, or at least make somebody less like Trump tempered slightly, is if you needed to win if you needed something closer to a true democracy to get the office, at the very least, you'd be less likely to persecute a significant chunk of people. It was if you have to win Puerto Rico as a state to win the presidency, maybe you're less likely to start prosecuting large numbers of Latinos in the country. Not guaranteed, and maybe I have too much faith in democracy, but it seems like a thing that would solve some problems. And I should have done the math of if DC were a state, would Trump still have won? I think he probably still would have, even if it had gone to Kamala.
Well, and just to
So as a resident of the District of Columbia,
Mhm.
I do get to vote for the presidency,
Yep.
but I do not get any say in Congress or in any capacity. I have a shadow senator and a shadow House of Representative whose entire job is to try to make us a state.
Yep.
They're crushing it.
Doing so good.
You know, I forgot about this until today, Derek. Back when I worked in DC, I lived in Virginia. I very nearly came around a corner. Well, I came around a corner and very nearly knocked Eleanor Holmes Norton down.
Oh, you would have killed her. I mean,
I hope not.
well, she was 1 billion years old then, and she's now 2 billion years old.
Yeah.
How old was she as of currently 88?
Okay. Wow. That's even more than I thought.
She finally said she's not going to seek re-election this year. So we are
We're really going to miss her.
Listen, I'm not
She's
saying
been
that
a character. She's been.
she has
No, she hasn't done anything wrong. It's just that
but she's been in office since 1991.
Yeah.
Like, DC does not shift. We love keeping with the same people. We had Mayor Bowser until she also is not going to run for re-election, and now there's a huge fight over who's going to be the next mayor. Like, DC loves to stick with whatever they got.
Yeah.
Even if they're not
Congress.
accomplishing
We
the
had Joe Biden
task.
for
Senator
Biden for 20.
Joe Biden?
Well, yeah, senators only have to run, a third as often, so it's a little easier.
Now it's interesting because one of the reforms that I would propose is kind of in direct tension with what you were talking about, Mike, because one of the things that I think would help is, and it would take a constitutional amendment, doing away with the Electoral College.
Well, there is the National Popular Vote Act.
Yeah, there's the pact
which is something
between
which I think Virginia just adopted. So
did they?
And also, like, if it gets passed, we'll see if that actually happens. If someone challenges it in court or something.
Yeah, we should say what that is. Essentially, it is a push within a number of states to pass a law that will be triggered to go into effect once enough states have passed such laws that their electoral votes equal 270.
It's the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is what it's called.
Yeah. And essentially what this would do is these states will, by adopting this, commit to their electoral votes will be pledged not to whoever wins the popular vote in their state, but to whoever wins the majority of votes in the country.
Yep.
Now, whether or not that would hold up, I think it would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, we at some point maybe we can do a sidebar on it.
Good.
Yeah.
We should do primary colors or something and have a sidebar about electoral.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a fan of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I don't think that this would run afoul of that. It would mean that you have to get one more state probably to enact it.
Sure. I guess I'm saying if the elections are decided simply by, majority popular vote, you wouldn't have to go to Puerto Rico to win its electoral votes.
True.
You would.
I still would be a fan of making DC and potentially Puerto Rico states.
Oh yeah,
for a couple other reasons. Yeah.
I'm just saying, with regard to fixing our election process, those two ideas are in tension.
So making DC a state provides some additional benefits in that it makes now DC needs to have some district court judges, so you get to appoint a bunch of new judges.
Sure. Do you want to talk about judicial?
Yep. So I wonder where you guys fall on this. Expanding the courts in general versus expanding expanding all courts versus expanding the Supreme Court versus other judicial reforms. People have suggested that they serve for a number of terms instead of a life term.
Sure.
A lot of those things would be difficult to do without having an amendment passed, which seems unlikely at this point.
I think just the question of having Supreme Court justices serve terms, that would require an amendment.
Which by the way, I think would be phenomenal for
Yeah.
for our country, but that's that's
Long term, yes.
Yes. Quickly keep going.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of what tends to come up once every few years, which is the 18-year, every 2 years you get a new justice, and that means no president can have more than 4 over the course of their 2 terms. It also means, as has been the case for the last however many years, when it switches from blue to red to blue to red, you start getting a more close to equal court when it comes to this. And it also might mean that you actually will put in people who are possibly swing voters, or a little bit more towards the middle, just because every president's guaranteed at least a couple justices, rather than now where it's like when it happens it is the thing.
There are also
Go for it, Jeff.
Jeff, you want to go first?
Okay, I'm curious. This I'm not really pushing back. I'm just curious how it would work when a justice dies. Because would that be an additional seat for that?
That is a good question.
It is.
We're talking about a hypothetical law, so I don't know, or hypothetical amendment. So
right. I've read different things. I've read that they just get that. So congratulations, you get another justice. I've also read that adds 2 more years to everyone's term. So therefore it's like, there's no, again, these are hypotheticals that haven't even been remotely, presented.
And in the end, one of the things we have to accept is there's no perfect solution. We're just trying to make things better in some way.
Right.
Also, I vaguely recall someone saying that like once a justice is done with their 18 years, it can't be renewed. Although I actually disagree. I say it could be renewed, but if it's renewed by the new president, it gets renewed. The other option is well, let me just quickly finish, Mike. If they, after their 18 years, they move to senior status where they can like substitute for like recused or absent justices, I could see a scenario where the most recent one takes back over for
the series of the senior ones substitute in over time.
Right.
That would make sense.
Right.
None of these things are going to have perfect solutions. You probably have to kind of see what happens.
It's worth maybe noting for the listeners that we're talking here just about the rules for Supreme Court justices. Because the Constitution, Article 3 of the Constitution says there shall be a Supreme Court and whatever inferior courts that Congress decides, and that justices on the Supreme Court serve for life. But I forget the exact language, but they can be impeached for, good cause, essentially.
So, and I should probably take a step back and say part of the reason I want to propose some of these reforms is the world will not take us seriously right now unless we do something to kind of show we got our shit together. And maybe one of the things that we could say is, hey, we are now a more democratic country and we have more Supreme Court justices and yada, yada, yada. This is why in the future we will not be tearing up treaties left and right, and we will, not be trying to tariff everyone and start random wars.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents on that.
I mean, the problem is that then there's another election, and who knows who gets power.
I know. You're trying to make reforms that are long-lasting in some way, so DC being a state or something.
So, but Mike, you asked, sorry, go ahead. You may.
No, you go on.
You asked earlier, about expanding the Supreme Court versus expanding the judiciary as a whole. For my part, we should probably something like double the size of the federal judiciary. If we're being realistic about solving the problem, if we're being realistic about solving the problem of the heavily overworked judiciary, I think we need to double it. Whether, we're talking about the political balances, I don't know that you need to double it necessarily. But.
Leaning into the political balances, I'm trying to figure out what you could do that would, undo a significant amount of Trump's damage, but also not come off as you're massively court packing and have you lose the next election because of that. So threading that needle.
I'm going to go ahead and say that, no, never mind.
I think threading, like we've seen that the Congress under Biden was able to pass this, and Biden was even able to veto it, and no one, like there was some small outcry at the time. This is not a thing most people are aware of because it really did not reach national headlines, and I don't think it would have gotten to national headlines if he had been able to appoint these judges. So I think that kind of gives you a permission structure of like, hey, you can do this, you can create some new judges and get away with it, versus like expanding the Supreme Court might get more of a backlash.
Yeah, I suppose that would probably get more headlines.
Yeah, so I'm open to other ideas. If anyone wants to tell me why I'm wrong, that's also totally fine. What? Oh, I had a couple other things. Some of these I've gotten from some other sources. So,
Sure.
Jeff's favorite senator, Mike Lee, proposed that any emergency declaration expires after 30 days unless Congress approves them. And we're seeing the Trump administration. There's dozens of currently declared emergency situations for a bunch of different reasons.
I'm going to guess that Mike Lee said that in response to COVID. And that was the one instance where it would, not the one, but that's one instance where it absolutely would have needed to be extended beyond 30 days. And Congress probably wouldn't have, because Congress is Congress.
30 days in, they probably would have. At some point, they probably would have stopped. But I think it's not a bad idea, at least for some situations. Having statutes sunset or having power sunset, I lean towards that being a good idea. The War Powers Act that we passed after 9/11, man, that should sunset. That should sunset every couple of years and then make Congress repass it. I feel that way about a lot of these powers expanding the powers of the executive branch. David Frum had the idea of anyone receiving Secret Service protection must disclose their tax returns. I think that's a great idea.
Sure.
If we're going to be supplying Donald Trump and his family with Secret Service for life, let's see what they're doing.
Interesting. So, okay, let me pose a question. Would that require a constitutional amendment?
For the Secret Service? Why?
Well, if you are elected, like either, sorry, let me back up.
You could say, if you're worried that it's going to infringe on the executive, you could say, anyone other than the active president of the United States or the president and the vice president of the United States must disclose their tax returns. In which case, that would still apply to former vice president or former presidents.
So then it's not a qualification to run for office, because the Constitution lays out what's a qualification to run for office. Now, of course,
if you want the Secret Service,
but it's unrealistic to say that I don't know.
I don't think you're creating you're not raising the age to be president to 40. You're saying that if you were president elect and you want Secret Service, you have to disclose your tax returns. And it could just be 2 or 3 years or something. I don't know. I haven't thought that part through.
Okay.
I mean, to my knowledge, Jeff, there's an act that says what the duties of the Secret Service are.
Right.
That's where it says who gets Secret Service protection. It would just require an amendment to that act, as I understand it. It's 18 U.S.C. 3056.
I know it's like the president's immediate family and the vice president and their immediate family.
It's a whole list, and obviously it also includes, like, as you get up to an election, who gets it.
Okay, so it's just the president and their spouse and the
minor children
under 16.
Right.
Of a former president.
Yep.
So wait, I guess the presumption is that they will be protected while that the president's children, regardless of age.
Well, that's number 2. I mean, that's A2.
The immediate families. Okay.
So once a president's no longer in office, they get the protection, their spouse gets the protection, and then their children under 16 get the protection. No one else gets it after.
Gotcha.
They leave, unless they, of course, become a different member of the government and get like whatever if they're a.
Right. I guess then I'm thinking in terms of your John C. presidents. I'm trying not to lay out this hypothetical in a way that is essentially Hunter Biden, but I'm struggling with it. You are the adult child of a president. Maybe you don't have, maybe you're estranged. Who the hell knows? You don't have any contact with them, but now suddenly the law says you have Secret Service protection or the law says you should be entitled to Secret Service protection, and maybe you should, but also, wait, now I have to disclose to the public all my taxes because my parent decided to run for president, which was a decision I didn't have anything to do with. And I can see that being
I think I have one response to you, which is at the end of subsection A, it says the protection authorized in paragraphs 2 through 8 may be declined. So
that's
you
true.
you can decline it. That's step 1. And step 2, I think in the scenario we're talking about, where, you know, we are adding in a requirement that you have to disclose your tax returns, I think the answer is basically the same. If you don't want to do that, you can decline the protection. You know, like you either have to do it or you decline it. Those are the two or by failing to disclose your tax returns, you have automatically declined it.
Yeah, I guess I'm picturing somebody who's put in this situation of, because of something their parent did that they didn't have any influence on, they are now in a position of either having threats to their life for which they have no protection, or no privacy because they're having to disclose all their financial records, or 3 years of financial records or whatever.
Really, I don't think that's an issue. I mean, I think because really the only people that have to have protection are the president, the vice president, the president-elect, and the vice president-elect. Those are the ones that have to have the protection and can't decline it.
I mean, we could also amend this to say that, like, they don't have to. They could decline to have it.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, but you are like the child of the president, so you will face threats. Like, so crazy people. Can,
I understand, and you could pay for your own security, or you could disclose your tax return. Like, I want Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump to disclose their tax returns. I understand that this is.
I do too.
I understand there's some complications.
To, like, my lawyer brain is like, but how would this apply to, you know, a normal presidential administration? And
maybe this will create some issues where, like, a conspiracy theorist will always hunt through every document endlessly and find any, you know, any tiny little thing to have a conspiracy theory about. So maybe this will create, you know, why was so-and-so making money from a hot dog stand? Were hot dogs kids? And it really was, he was working at a hot dog stand.
Sorry. I was so not thinking about conspiracy theories that I didn't understand your sentence until I remembered that furniture was kids for a little while.
Yeah, no, I'm deep into the conspiracy world right now. I understand that's an issue. I also think that, like there's a,
for those unaware,
So for those unaware, Google Comet Pizza.
Yeah.
It's a pizza place in DC that the right-wing nut jobs in the world were saying pizzas were children, and it was,
and also Wayfair furniture.
Yeah. Like, whatever flaws we've seen past politicians have had, you don't have to love Joe Biden. You don't have to love Hillary Clinton. The best argument that they were, you know, at least not as corrupt as the current administration, or like relatively uncorrupt, is we have their tax returns. Between Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, they kept running for office every 4 years for, you know, 30, 40 years. So we have decades of their tax returns. Same with Joe Biden, where we have like all of his tax returns going back to when he was 30 years old.
Right.
We, like, if there were an inconsistency there, someone would have prosecuted him for it. So that's why I would like something to force somebody's hand and make them do this if they're running.
Sure. And I like that idea. I want there to be more transparency and less opportunity for the kind of corruption we're seeing. I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah. I mean,
how can it be abused? How can it, you know, work in ways that you wasn't intended?
You're honestly pushing against it is the right thing to do. Like, there's no way you find the weaknesses otherwise. So
sure,
you're making very valid points.
Like Tiffany Trump, I don't care what her taxes are.
Oh no,
she doesn't want to have anything to do seemingly with her father. Why?
No, unless you, like, the vindictive soul in me. I want, like, every crime unearthed here. I think that these people are really bad, and unless you were actively fighting against them, No, I want all of you. Tell me all the secrets.
Sure.
So maybe I'm coming from an impure place there. All right. So next idea, extending statute of limitations for election-related crimes. I don't want the incentive to be, oh, we just have to win this election, and then the statute of limitation will run. So
Sure.
These should be at least 10-year statutes, if not life. Like I want public corruption to be something that at the very least, public corruption, you should live in fear for the rest of your life that you will be prosecuted for it.
It is a weird thing that has happened in our culture where, for some reason, the legal system holds elected officials to a lower standard for corruption than business people and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
This
all goes through John Roberts deciding to legalize corruption.
Right.
This is and that could also be a sidebar where John Roberts has never seen a corruption statute that he doesn't think is unconstitutional.
Or going to one of your later points, a antitrust restriction that wasn't unconstitutional.
Oh, true. Yeah. Also, this should probably touch on pardon reform would also be great.
Yeah.
But again, would need a constitutional amendment.
I can absolutely.
If there's one you want to talk about,
the International Criminal Court.
Oh, absolutely. So that was actually...
We were huge proponents of the Rome Statute and establishing the court, but then we don't want anything to do with it.
It would be really helpful if there were another threat to Pete Hegseth, threatening war crimes, where that, even if Trump pardons you, the International Criminal Court might still go after you.
So...
I will say, and it's not just joining the ICC, it's rejoining all of the significant agreements that we've abandoned.
Yeah.
Paris Agreement, WHO, rejoin, hypothetically, the Iran nuclear deal. We'll see what the fuck happens with that, but that's another story for a different day.
If that's going to happen.
And I guess one thing that, this is a broader thing than just getting back to sort of democratic politics, but if in fact, hypothetically, someone like the United States, who has been so instrumental on the sort of international stage, wants to actually be a leader on the international stage, we should probably push to have international law have a little bit more robustness to it and actually help those courts achieve some type of legitimacy.
Yeah.
It would also be a good reform for us to say, hey, we've turned a new leaf. We are not going to be a rogue state with nuclear weapons again. We are going to be, a strong proponent of international law.
Right. And I think it would go very far for us to actually make that support and focus on the strategic areas, make human rights a core tenet of our foreign policy, and at least organize summits to sort of get some draft approaches for fighting some authoritarianism.
Yep.
I'm just throwing it out there. God knows that's not something we're going to be doing anytime soon, but it would make sense. Sorry, Geoff, I cut you off.
It's okay. So all of these are great good governance principles that I'm generally behind the idea of. The issue that I'm having with this conversation is that, circling back to the Nuremberg trial and the Nazis, a lot has to happen before we can get to where we can accomplish any of what we're talking about.
You're right.
So how do we go about the process of whoever is elected, assuming that a Democrat is elected in 2028, they are going to have to essentially fire everybody in the Justice Department, everybody in Health and Human Services. I mean, they're going to have to yet again gut the federal government in order to correct all of this, which is only going to delay actually fixing it. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a necessary delay. How do you go about, reestablishing just functioning government in the wake of something like the system that we see displayed in Nuremberg, especially since Hitler won the popular vote,
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how free and fair that election was, of course, but all the electoral reforms in the world don't guarantee that you're not going to get a fascist shithead in office. It just puts some guardrails on what they can do with that authority.
Yeah, so I don't have a magic solution to prevent this from never happening again, and I don't have a magic solution on how we would have a fully staffed government other than every 4 years, every 4 to 8 years, when a new administration enters, the first thing they have to do is hire 5 to 10,000 people. That's first order of business, is like staffing the executive branch to begin with.
Yeah, I think you're probably talking about 5 to 10 million people.
You might be right.
The size of the federal, yeah. I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, as a standard order of principle, they're already hiring. It's already a massive jobs program.
It is, yes.
Yeah, there's no easy solution there. It's just you kind of have to do it.
Well, what I would say is that your transition team becomes very different. Like you are hiring people with the sole job of they pick this part of the DOJ, and their job is to fix that part. Don't care.
Some of these reforms don't require the executive branch.
Right.
Sure.
Congress is the one that's going to draft the legislation saying we're expanding the judiciary or DC statehood.
Right. And Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Right.
So Puerto Rico is an interesting conversation because I don't actually know if Puerto Ricans want statehood. That is a I know they've had referendums in the past. I don't think statehood won a all-out majority. So it's as somebody who's like sitting here in Philadelphia right now, I would love it if Puerto Rico was a state. But if they don't want to be a state, then what am I going to do?
It's hard to know because I think it was 2020 was the last time they had the referendum, and it was like 53%, but only half voted.
Yeah.
And then it was like a few years before, it was like 97%, but everyone boycotted it for various reasons. So like it's really hard to know what what they would want.
I don't know. Puerto Rico has some interesting political takes. I actually, if they were a state, I don't actually know where they would land on a lot of issues.
Oh, I didn't realize they actually did it in 2024 too, and this time it was 57%.
Yeah, so I would love it if they were a state. I don't actually, unless they're an all-out majority wants it to be a state in Puerto Rico, then they can decide on their own, I guess. I also know that there's a significant independence movement in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, as a guy living in Pennsylvania, what the hell is of mine? But I have a fundamental problem with us having like these weird colonial.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
Things left where we've got like Guam for probably strategic military reasons. Puerto Rico, all these places where it's like statehood or independence, because we can't. I don't like us being this colonial power.
You are 100% agree. Could not agree more. But also, if the people there do not want to be a state, then who am I to argue against them? A couple random additional things, and I know I didn't hit on every possible reform. Immigration, civil rights reforms, obviously, like probably more of these probably should have focused on ICE and some of the recent acts that they've done. I can't imagine us living in a country where every 4 years we decide that we're going to go around and do mass deportations and end up randomly deport American citizens or executing peaceful protesters in the street. So I think if we had some sort of asylum pathway to citizenship, it would probably honestly be unpopular in a lot of ways, but also like it's hard for me to picture a country sustaining itself where these acts occur every 4 to 8 years, depending on who's in office. And I just think that's something that we'd have to find a solution for eventually. ICE has been massively expanded under this administration, and I don't know what you do with that population of people.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you could just mass fire them all. And we could have like a long conversation about what should happen to ICE and Homeland Security. Other things that have been toying with is like reforming sovereign immunity. So like maybe you waive sovereign immunity if you accidentally deport an American citizen. Maybe they can sue you then.
That's something Congress can do.
Yeah.
And hey, by the way, qualified immunity too.
There we go. Yep.
But now we're getting into just general things I would like to fix.
Yeah.
We're just doing Mike and Jeff's checklist for fixing shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, maybe that should be a criticism of us, where, like, if our solution for things is things that we were saying were already solutions, like, not saying that's wrong, but maybe we should reevaluate where we're coming from.
Sure. I'd really like Congress to pass something so that I can get this TV mounted on my wall.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I had a bunch of other ideas, but if the listeners have any suggestions, I would love to see them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa P. LLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2026, all rights reserved.